Oh, goodness gracious. So today we're going to be talking about journaling to support recovery from addiction. And our friend Amy here does a lot of research in that area. So we're going to have her here in just a few moments. I am Kurt Devine. I think most of you know me. Erin is on assignment. It appears she's in Alabama presently on a plane. So she's not here today. So it's just me. Sorry. We got a lot of great talks coming up, and over the next 5-6 weeks, it's a lot of interesting stuff. And it's going to end nothing's ending, but in April, we have Charlie Reznikoff, whom everybody loves, has decided to come back and talk about hot topics in addiction medicine. So put that on your calendar. That's going to be a great talk as well. And then remember, there's free CME, and you all know how to get this. Just when our friend Katie sends you that text or that email, make sure that you answer it and answer the questions. Remember, we do love it if people have their videos on. We don't care if you're eating a snack. It makes it much more fun for Amy if your video's on. I think I have been on other people's echoes. I did a talk for New Mexico and I did a talk for Hawaii this last month. No one turned on their video at all. And I told them how many people turned their videos on for us. So please feel free to turn those on. And remember, if you need some help, we get some really fun questions about patients. So feel free to give us a call if there's any way we can help you. Again, and on the next slide, it'll talk about all of the different things on the SOAR resource, the Center for Opioid Resources and Education. The core site has all kinds of protocols and all kinds of things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in your clinic. Just go on there and find what you need. And I do believe on there as well as all the recordings. I know people have asked us if there's recordings of the echoes, and those are on there. Just remember, you cannot get CME if you watch the recording. You got to be here live. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy Kretzman, and she is our friend who does all the research on journaling. She was here about a year ago, and by popular demand, we brought her back. And again, if you start journaling, this is why. So you can blame the echo. So go ahead, Amy, and please introduce yourself a little more specifically. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kurt, and welcome to everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be back with my friends at Stratus. It's been many presentations over a long number of years that I've been able to join you and tell you more about my work. And my last several presentations, maybe once a year for the last 3 years or so, have all been around this journaling research that I'll be telling you about today. And today I'm really happy to be presenting you with the latest installment, which is a research study that's currently open to enrollment. And the people we are enrolling in this study are counselors and practitioners. So part of why I'm here is to express an invitation for you to join the study if you are interested. In this study, I would train you on this specific style of journaling that I'll be presenting today. I'll send you a journal in the mail. You would do a training with me and get either free CEUs or gift cards. And then after the training, you would decide if you'd like to start such a journaling group with your clients or work individually with your clients with the journaling technique. And in that case, then we'd ship you a box of journals for your clients. So I'll be going into that in more depth today. But first, I'll provide you with a bit of background on the journaling research. So let's see. Okay, how does that look?
That looks perfect. Does it look good to everybody else? Yeah. Amy, just one question before you get going, like in groups who do this, who's better at journaling, men or women?
That's a very interesting question. We got some feedback from counselors early on that they felt that this would only appeal to women. But then when we recruited for a research study in a treatment setting that was for people of all genders, we got about 50% men, 50% women. So when you think of the typical patient in a substance use disorder treatment program, it's usually like 66% men, 33% women. That's usually the gender breakdown. So that if we got 50-50, it means we got slightly fewer men in relationship to the typical population. But still, we got men very interested, involved, and participating wholeheartedly. So that was good to see. So I want to start by saying that there's a lovely map of my area here that you see that I'll put in the chat. I'm joining you today from the traditional homelands of the Dakota people, land on which the University of Minnesota Twin Cities and the School of Social Work has built and remains. And it's just a pleasure to meet all of you. Please call me Amy. I'm an associate professor of social work at the University of Minnesota, and I study addiction recovery. So my focus is on the experience of recovery. And there's a good number of us across the country who study actually focusing on recovery, not studying active addiction in any way, but studying that process of recovery. So as such, for many years now, I've studied gratitude, forgiveness, sober living houses, 12-step programs, a series of studies on the experience of recovery in small towns and rural communities. And currently, this sort of many years now, focus on journaling as a tool to support early recovery. I sometimes teach the addiction class, and I give talks about my research in the community. And I've started a new social media initiative. So Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm starting to post results from my own studies and results of studies that I'm reading that I think are really interesting, and also incorporating some points from my teaching. So if you'd like to follow me, it's at Dr. Krentzman on all of these platforms. I'd like to just pause and take a moment to thank you. I mean, this Echo is totally amazing. It's been many years now that you've been providing this free, incredible service. And also thanks to everyone here for all the hard work you do, meeting people at arguably the lowest point in their lives and helping them find some hope and a way forward. So I just am humbled to be here with you. A word of gratitude about people I work closely with, my collaborators who helped me design the research and write it up, a long list of research assistants. There's one here with us today. Sonia Harris is here today, research assistants who helped me so much with my work. And also the treatment centers that have invited me in and let me conduct studies with their clients. You know, really, I am so grateful. Also, once in a while, I get some funding, some money to pay for my research, which I'm profoundly grateful for. What will we do together in these 40 minutes? I want to introduce you to what I call positive recovery journaling. This is a journaling practice that I developed for people in early recovery. It's built on existing research. I'll be telling you a little bit about that. Then I'm going to briefly tell you the results of 2 studies that I conducted on positive recovery journaling. Now, when a researcher develops a new intervention and does a research study on that intervention, as you might imagine, the nature of that research study is going to be somewhat artificial. Even though our second study took place during COVID, in some ways that added some complexity. But there's always a little bit or a lot of a gap between the way that study is conducted and the way real counselors would practice in the real world. And that's my current study that I'll be telling you more about here as item number 3, which we call an implementation science study. Implementation science means the scientific study of what happens when you take an intervention that looks good in a lab or in a research setting, and you try to translate it and make it happen in the real world. That's actually a scientific enterprise. And that's a little bit of what I'm doing now. So more about that along the way. I just want to introduce you to the journaling practice, give you a feeling for it. And again, as I said earlier, I developed positive recovery journaling based on existing research and tailoring the experience of journaling to people in early recovery to meet their needs. And one of the most pressing needs I feel in early recovery is to do some journaling or do some types of intervention that counter that pervasive negative mood that people feel before their brains are really healing. So can we do something? Can we offer something to people that boosts their mood and counters some of the negative worldview that's just part and parcel of early recovery for many people? I'll first just tell you a little bit about the research that is the foundation for positive recovery journaling. I wonder if anyone here has heard of or uses a technique called behavioral activation. If you'd be willing, just in the chat, just go ahead and say yes or no, whether either yes, you've heard of it, or either yes, you use it. I'd be very curious to hear if those words are familiar to counselors now and practitioners. Behavioral activation involves first having your clients articulate, good, I'm seeing some yeses. The client first articulates their wonderful, their what's most valuable to them in life, and then they identify some tasks or some steps they can take toward that vision of what's most important to them. And it's very validating and it's very motivating to do this kind of an exercise. So in my journaling practice, I've built that kind of an exercise in. My journaling is also based on positive psychology. Positive psychology was developed in the late 1990s with the idea that what we ought to do for clients is not only relieve their pathological symptoms, but also help them to thrive and flourish, like help them go, not just come up to baseline, but actually thrive and exceed and go the term they sometimes use is north of neutral. How can we get people really to be happy and satisfied with life? And this involves gratitude exercises, acts of kindness, savoring good things that happened, and other sorts of things. So both behavioral activation and positive psychology have been shown to improve mood and reduce addictive behavior across a good number of studies. Now, there has been research on journaling. One of the types of journaling research that's out there is called expressive writing. Now, unlike what I had in mind for positive recovery journaling, expressive writing has a person intentionally write about what's negative, what they're feeling really bad about right now, as a way to express and discharge some of that negative emotion, and there's value in it. So they might say in an expressive writing exercise, they might ask people to write about the most traumatic experience of their life every day for 15 minutes for 3 to 5 days. And that has shown some benefit for some physical health benefits, and in some studies, some psychological health benefits. And it just seems to make sense that if people have an outlet, like a steam valve for getting those negative thoughts and feelings out into the world, it could relieve them of stress. Another type of journaling that's been covered in the research is something called interactive journaling. There's an image of it on the right-hand side. It looks like a nice magazine, a colorful magazine, where people learn a little bit of didactic content, and then they write their own responses directly into the magazine in response to how that content applies to their own lives. So what we know about different interactive journaling booklets is it's been shown to improve knowledge about alcohol and foster willingness to change, and has reduced recidivism in criminal justice settings. So it's been applied, both techniques have been applied to addiction. So given what that background research has had to say, where expressive writing is focused mostly on negative events, one of my thought processes was, what about a journaling practice that focuses on what's going right, not only on what's painful and what's distressing now, but can we use journaling to help people switch their focus, their mindfulness from negative and scan the day for what's gone well? So could that be built into a recovery journal? Now, interactive journaling has focused mostly on the initiation or the start of behavior change, but I thought, well, what about a journaling practice that reinforces the maintenance of behavior change? These are separate psychological processes. Starting a new behavior and then maintaining a new behavior is a separate psychological process, some have said. Now, I see something in the chat, so I'm going to stop and read it. And if you have a question for me along the way, please put it in the chat or interrupt me. I believe that an important aspect of expressive writing involves synthesizing this information to develop understandings or create strategies for the future. Absolutely. When people write, when people engage in journaling and they're writing out their thoughts, their feelings, one thing that can come from that is a new insight into their situation. They could get a good idea about how to move forward. And that, I feel, speaks a little bit to the comment in the chat. Also, positive psychology and behavioral activation have shown some benefit for people with addiction. What would happen if we combine them? So therefore, I created positive recovery journaling. This is what the standard recovery journaling page looks like. The spine down the middle represents the present moment. If the person is journaling morning, noon, night, middle of night, it's always now. And in the left, they review the past 24 hours. And on the right, they plan the upcoming 24 hours. So the left-hand side of the page documents in part things that have recently happened that are good things or bad things. I'll get into that in a bit. And on the right, they plan for the future. Like, what would I like to do? What would I like to do or build in this coming day of sobriety? What would I like to get accomplished? What would I like to treat myself to? And how to plan a balanced day. So let me tell you a bit more about each of these components. On the upper left, the person is invited to make a list, look back over the past day and make a list of all the good things that happened, everything they could possibly think of, and small things count. We also have a standard gratitude list where people list things they are grateful for, including things they might sometimes take for granted. And one of the most popular things people have written is, I woke up sober. Then we also have a section for them to document bad things that happened in the past 24 hours. So this is along the lines of expressive writing, a place to discharge things that have not gone well and process things that people are upset about. And if this journal were all kind of saccharine sweet or looking through it like through a rose-colored lens, I don't think it would land very well with people in recovery. It wouldn't resonate with the truth of life. There's also an act of kindness exercise built in right here. This is where people think about other people. They stop thinking about themselves and they think about other people. Who do they know in their life who is suffering something they've seen on the news? They might express good wishes to the people they love the most. Who would they like to send good wishes out to today? And then I invite them to take one of those names and write it on the right-hand side under social and make a commitment in the coming day to actually reach out to one of these people and say, how are you doing? How are you recovering from surgery? You know, how is your illness? How are you feeling today now that, you know, you have a new job? On the right-hand side of the page, we have work and education. So it's kind of your standard to-do list of everything that has to get done. And there's some blank area here. I think when I redesign the journaling in the next iteration, I'm going to include a wide margin all the way around so people have extra space to write. But for now, this is basically what the page layout looks like. Home and housing would be your household chores. Recreation. Now, this is really interesting because years ago in the journal, this is the third version, I had the word joy and I wanted people to plan something fun and enjoyable. And I noticed that in my research, people with addiction, some of them, they had trouble understanding what I meant by joy. And they said, I won't know if I've had joy till the event is already over. And even now that we've changed the word to recreation, some people in my current study are telling me that the clients are confused about what they mean by recreation. So I think in the next version, maybe I'll just write fun and see if that lands on people in a way that's helpful. We want people to start having fun in recovery in order to reinforce recovery and start to value recovery, the benefits of recovery over the if you will, the benefits, if you will, of active addiction. What steps people should take in the current upcoming day for their health, maybe make a doctor's appointment or take their vitamins. What will they do specifically today to support recovery? Spirituality, community could mean anything they want. It could mean their neighborhood, their sober living house. Social activities in the coming day. Money and abundance might be cash the check or Venmo someone some money you owe them, whatever might fall under that category. And amends and repair is a nod to the 10th step. If you're familiar with 12-step programs, the 10th step invites people to do this kind of daily review and then itemize places where the person might need to make an apology or an amends to someone. Where do things go wrong in a way that the person has responsibility and they can set things right? So I included that in the journal for people when they're at that later stage of recovery. So again, these categories are all built on existing research showing that gratitude can improve mood and well-being and can strengthen relationships. Writing about upsetting things can be beneficial. Loving kindness meditations have shown to improve mood and self-compassion. Doing things that are enjoyable and important has been shown to improve mood. Making progress on personal goals, like when we scratch something out that we have accomplished, that's been associated in research with happiness. And acts of kindness and helpfulness toward others can increase the happiness of the person who has been kind. So all of this research bundled together in order to give the person in recovery the strongest possible boost in their mood, coming at it by all different angles. The recovery journaling booklet is made up of 2 types of journaling pages. This is a composite entry of what I call the main journaling page that I just presented to you. I'll just be quiet for a few seconds so you can have a look at what real people have written in their journal entry. And by the way, this was the average number of items, like each bullet pointed item, I call an item, and each entry I call the whole thing that you're looking at, the double page spread. But this is the average number of items that people in my research have written down. So they have a real facility, a real ability to fill up these journaling pages with an average of about 40 items per page. Now, to get people to do that, I give them a lot of examples. And I find that people are able to really do this very easily, all people across the spectrum, as long as they have just basic literacy skills. If I give them tons and tons of examples, they're really able to fill up these journaling pages.
You know, Amy, is there any way on there
Please.
that they can like check it off? Like if they've planned to do something, how do you know they've done it?
You know, my studies haven't followed up to say, to check empirically if they really got these things done. Sometimes I will ask people, to what extent you've written things down, to what extent did you get things done because it was written down? And when we have debriefing sessions with people in the research, after a research study is over, people told us, people told us that that they use the right-hand side as a simple planner, especially people very, very early in recovery, maybe in residential treatment. What I noticed from the women, that was my first study, was all women, that they told me that they had trouble remembering things. And it was almost like they felt this expectation that they needed to memorize. Like if they had to call their doctor or take their vitamin, that was something for them to memorize in their head. And if they forgot, they felt really bad about themselves. But when they wrote it down, they'd remember to do it. And when they remembered, they got it done. And then they felt really good about themselves. So we did hear a little bit from people that it helped them remember important things and help them get things done. This is the second type of journaling page in the positive recovery journaling booklet. And this is the behavioral activation element, where people choose one of the important life areas from this right-hand side of the page, and then they write it down at the top, and then they ask questions. They answer in the space provided. They answer questions about that life area that are designed. These questions are designed to help them express what makes that life area important to you. So now I'll again be quiet for a few seconds. This is my handwriting, but it's based on a real participant entry. So I'll give you a chance to read this part. Now, what you see happening down here in this part of the journal, the lower right hand, we ask them to summarize all they've written in a short phrase. And then we ask them to write down some action steps they could take to align their lives in accordance with this vision that they've just written. And then after they write a list, like a first version might be step work, find a meeting, and housing, we teach them in the journaling group how to make these basically SMART goals. So we help them convert these initial goals that are very good into even better goals that are very specific and can be observable and are the next small step toward getting that job done. So step work, instead of just step work, this afternoon, spend an hour on first chapter step work in a quiet location. And then once they have developed this skill over a couple of group sessions, then they can use that skill every day when they are making their action items on the right-hand side of the page. So I don't ask people to write a SMART goal for every single item on the right-hand side, but if they have an item that they feel would be especially hard or difficult, then I invite them to use, to make it a SMART goal, to rewrite it in that even better style. So these are all the components of the intervention. Next, I'll be telling you about 2 studies of the journaling practice. I just wonder if there are any questions so far. You can feel free to unmute or put your questions in the chat. I'll go forward then. I want to tell you about 2 studies I conducted. The first one has been published. This was a study of 15 women in residential treatment. I screened them, informed consent. They attended an 8-session group that I conducted where I teach them the journaling. So what we've developed now is like a curriculum of 8 sessions that teaches people the journaling little by little. And they journal every single day in the group, and they're encouraged to journal on their own. Then after the journaling group phase, they're encouraged to journal by themselves independently for 2 more weeks, and then we interview them. So all of the elements that you see in red were favorable, beneficial improvement while the women were learning the journaling. So things improved for every one of the red items that you see. Now, we can't claim that the journaling caused this improvement because we didn't have a control group, but at least they weren't getting worse. So we felt that was encouraging. And as I mentioned earlier, people used the right-hand side to remember to do important things. They compared their good things list with their bad things list, and they were surprised to find that the good things list was almost always longer than the bad things list. And so this just happened by accident, that they're side by side, and they just compared the length of the list. And it was almost as if people fully expected that the bad things list would be worse. So it cultivated some optimism, and it also helped them see how much there was to be grateful for. Rushing off now to the second study I conducted, this one had a control group. So the control group filled out questionnaires every day, and the treatment group very much, as I just explained, had the 8 sessions with me and then journaled on their own. Now, one thing we discovered by accident is that the control group got some benefit from filling out their questionnaires. It sort of served as a little bit of a recovery check-in, and they got something out of it. So you don't want that to happen in a research study. You don't want the control group to get any benefits, because you want any benefits of the journaling to pop up. So I want to show you these results now that we can compare a treatment group to a control group. So both groups found their work to be equally effort, and by their work, I mean their study activity, equally easy, not very difficult, but the journaling group found their task to be more satisfying, pleasant, and helpful than the control group that were filling out questionnaires, even though they told us that they found the questionnaires were helpful. So basically a theory for how the journaling might work. They would do the journaling, they would experience increased satisfaction with life because of all of that positivity being generated, hopefully. This would make them more happy with their recovery. This would lead to increased commitment to sobriety. If they like recovery, it should enhance a commitment or dedication to recovery, and then there'd be reinforcement to stay sober. Now, you might ask which of these elements actually predicts treatment completion and abstinence. And in further research, this is breaking news that I have not reported publicly at all yet before. A person feeling overall, I am happy with my recovery, that item predicted abstinence throughout a treatment retention period, and also leaving treatment on good terms or graduating. So this one predicted both of those favorable outcomes. So isn't that interesting? Overall, I am happy with my recovery, scored from 0 to 10. The higher they rated their happiness with recovery, the more likely they were to be abstinent and complete treatment successfully, which suggests interventions to make people happier with their recovery, which I hope positive recovery journaling, well, that's certainly what it's designed to do. Now, in terms of our results of the randomized control trial where we had a control group, we didn't see any benefits of the journaling. The journaling is the, well, let me start by orienting you. The x-axis is time, baseline after group, after independent journaling, a period of no study activity, and then a 1-month follow-up. And the solid line is the journaling group, and the dashed line is the control group. So when we had the whole sample together, we didn't see any benefit of the journaling, no effect. Everyone was doing just as well as each other. But when I looked at the data and looked only at those people with less than 90 days sobriety, there you see a benefit of the journaling. Their satisfaction with life, which is the y-axis in this slide, was significantly greater for the people doing the journaling than the control group, only among the people with less than 90 days sobriety. So the journaling seems especially effective, at least with these preliminary results, with our most vulnerable clients, those with less than 90 days who might not have any tools yet. And this is like, gives them a bunch of tools all at once. The next outcome, happiness with recovery, again, no difference between treatment and control, unless we look only at that subset of the sample that were people with less than 90 days. Then we see the solid line is the journaling group. Then we see an effect of the journaling on happiness with recovery. And finally, commitment to sobriety. No difference between treatment and control unless we look at the people with less than 90 days of sobriety, and then we see an effect of the journaling. When those whiskers don't overlap, it means a significant difference between treatment and control. So some conclusions, and I'm responsible for keeping track of time. I think we're doing okay. Individuals in substance use disorder treatment find the journaling to be satisfying, pleasant, and helpful. And the journaling seems to help people who have less than 90 days sobriety. Those with more than 90 days might already be journaling. They might already be writing gratitude lists. We did ask people about that. People are using apps. They have sponsors. They're going to meetings. They're really building their toolkit by the time they have more than 90 days. And so then maybe the journaling they liked it. I mean, people universally pretty much liked it, but these were tools they were already using. People, positive recovery journaling in people with less than 90 days appears to boost satisfaction with life, happiness with early recovery, and commitment to sobriety, which could make recovery more reinforcing. So now in my final 10 minutes or so with you, approximately, I'm going to tell you about the study that I'm currently running right now that you could be a part of. This is an invitation for you to participate. In this study, we are training counselors how to run that 8-group session that I just described. So when we create new interventions and test them, we face important questions as researchers. How do we move scientific discoveries into the real world? We've done them under the conditions of research, which are in some ways artificial. And how do we help counselors and organizations adopt new ways of doing what they already do really well? So how do we break in and have a new intervention disseminated and really used in the way that it's intended? So that's the spirit of my current study. And that this kind of a study that looks at they use the word translation. It translates research from a lab or a research study into the real world. They call that translation. And that scientific study of translation is called implementation science. So implementation science studies how to successfully move research findings into regular clinical practice. It itself is a science and uses scientific procedures to answer research questions, concerns itself with precise testing and measurement. Implementation science understands that care is provided within a complex, nested system, and that stakeholder buy-in at all levels is necessary for successful implementation. And there are several other best practices related to implementation science that I'm using now in my current study. So the current study has a website. I'm really proud of it. Let me put it in the chat so you can have a look at it. Give me a moment. prjstudy.umn.edu. Please have a look at our beautiful website, which tells you all about this current study that's active that you can be a part of. You attend a Zoom workshop with me where I teach you how to start a positive recovery journaling group with your clients. If you want to use it with clients one-on-one, please don't let that stop you from being part of the study. I'm seeing something in the chat. Are there specific personal characteristics, skills that will predict who is more likely or less likely to engage in journaling? That's an excellent question. In our research, what we found is that people, both in the treatment and the control group, people with a little more years of education, just like, a high school diploma plus maybe a year of college versus a high school diploma alone. Just a little bit more years of education predicted people who stayed in the study and didn't drop out. That was the only thing that predicted people staying in the study if they had a little bit more years of education. So I think personality characteristics and skills that would predict, first of all, someone who is interested in journaling and willing to try it, and it's popular and of great interest to many, but not to everyone. And also people who have that basic literacy skill to at least be able to make a short list in writing. So those would be things that would help them engage in it and stay with it. So I think if it appeals to them, if it seems novel, if they get excited about it and they want to try something new. I mean, in my studies, it seemed people were really eager to try new things that would help them support their recovery. They seemed really excited about that. So I would say any kind of excitement or willingness to try something new that might be helpful. I hope that at least partially answered your question. Anyone who joins the study, you would be trained by me in a workshop. And right now we're thinking it'll be 2 3-hour workshops for which you would get CEUs for free or a gift card for $80. And then after the workshop, you would have your choice whether you wanted to try the journaling with your clients. If you say yes, we ship you a box of journals. And then we stay, this is another principle from implementation science. We stay in close touch with you. I offer free consultation as you go along. When you lead a group or use PRJ with your clients, you fill out a survey and I write you back that same day or as soon as I possibly can to respond to any questions or concerns that you raised. So we walk with you through it. We stay close to you and help support you any way we can as you use the journaling either as a topic for group or individually with clients. I'm seeing something in the chat. An important part of this seems to be that it gives the person some clear and well-defined activities to engage in, and engagement in treatment cannot be underestimated. Absolutely. I'm remembering, especially from the residential treatment study, women would write down on the right-hand side of the page, they'd write down, tell my recovery story in group tonight, or find an AA meeting to go to tonight. And so they would have written down these action items, and in group we share aloud what we've written. So they would share aloud their intention for the day, and that does help shore up motivation. to get things done. And at the same time, we reassure people that they don't have to get everything done or feel like a failure if they don't get, even if they don't get anything done. If they get one thing done, it would be an asset. And if they could plan something enjoyable or fun or joyful, to me, that's really essential so they can start to build a feeling that recovery is worthwhile, that it's possible to have fun and have joy in recovery. Progress, not perfection, absolutely. And so you can always email us. Our study has its own email address. It's learnprj@umn.edu. You can email me, umn.edu. Either way, we'd be very happy to answer any of your questions. We will provide you, if you join the study, we would provide you with everything you need to be successful. A box of journals, client-informed consent flyers, Google Slides to guide each session. So we give you a copy of Google Slides that you can modify for your setting and either use as your own personal notes when you're leading the group or show the slides on the screen if that's an option. Video recorded content, how-to content that you can review, the initial training, ongoing support and consultation, and an electronic toolkit. Now, this is not what my office looks like right now, but it almost it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I have boxes of journals quite like this in my office, and I want you to have them. I want them to go from my office to your office. So be very happy to immediately, if you sign up for the study, we put one journal in the mail for you personally to use. And then again, we ship you a box of journals and we really want you to have them. This is the compensation schedule. People can either do social work CEUs plus gift cards or gift cards only. That's your choice. And this is the timeline of the study. I'm just going to glance at my watch. I think I should be wrapping up pretty soon. But basically, the first step is to fill out an eligibility questionnaire that you'll find on our website. You would get permission from your supervisor. If you are a supervisor, that seems to be the most successful way for us to recruit, is if you could think you'd like your agency to try this, you can recommend a couple counselors to us. That seems to work really well. We would immediately send you a journal in the mail. You'd attend the training with me. And if you decide to move forward, you would prepare to use the journaling, and then you do 8 sessions. And after each session, you evaluate the session in a survey that we get the answers to right away. Then we'll have you evaluate your entire experience of being in the study, and then we end the study. So we had our first round of this study with 10 counselors. This is the purpose of the study: to evaluate me and my ability to teach, to learn about positive recovery journaling in real world settings, and what do counselors think of positive recovery journaling. So what have we learned so far with these 10 counselors? 7, after the training, 7 out of the 10 agreed to move forward and use PRJ with their clients. For a whole host of different reasons. One person didn't have any clients yet. Someone else has a set curriculum at work they have to follow. Someone else was not in a recovery setting or an addiction setting, and she didn't think the journaling would fit. So they can feel free not to continue in the study. We had these 10 counselors rate PRJ in terms of whether they like it, whether it seems fitting for their setting, and whether it seems doable. And these were all rated in terms of the average ratings fell between agree and strongly agree. So that concludes my talk. I warmly invite you to consider, can we get a journal even if we're not eligible for this study? Well, what I can do, stay in touch with me, and if we have any left over at the end of the study, then we will gladly send you one. We absolutely will gladly send you one. And I also have a free journaling page that I can put in the chat. I just have to navigate to it. So I welcome your thoughts and your questions.
Yeah, and if people have questions you want to unmute, I think that'd be great. It says how many sessions are involved, and is this primarily a group session also, or individual?
Now that's very interesting because it speaks to one of the ways we go from the sort of artificial research setting into the real world. So in the research setting, I had a closed group. So the members of the group were the same for all 8 sessions. Of course, there was some dropout and some absenteeism as normal with human beings. But in the real world, there would be more of an open group with new clients coming in all the time. And we want to try and see what would happen if you used this 8 session where you had new people coming in for each session. We'd love to see how that would work and support you. We've got all kinds of ideas for making that successful. Also in the study so far, we don't have anyone who's using the journaling one-on-one with clients, but we'd welcome you if that's how you would want to use it. We welcome you to participate. It would be really neat for us to see how that would work. Thanks for the kind words. Okay, so there in the chat is the questionnaire if you want to get started. And we ask people in the research study to use PRJ 8 times with clients, whether that's a group or individuals. And I have one more thing to add to the chat.
Okay.
That'll have to give me a moment to get organized.
I certainly have a couple of questions here. And again, if somebody has another one, please unmute. This seems like it would be an interesting thing for people to do in prison
Yes.
as they're going through recovery. Is that something you've looked at?
I haven't yet. Some of the people in my research have had some level of criminal justice involvement. Maybe they were under supervision or formally had a history of having been incarcerated. So there were certainly people in my studies in the past who had that experience. I haven't brought it into a prison in the past, but if you're a provider working in a jail or prison, we'd love to have you join the study, and we're able to have you join us.
Interesting. Have you looked at all at because most of the treatment now is, let's say 30 days. Let's say somebody's in treatment for 30 days. Have you followed people to see what retention there is as far as journaling, or followed them up later to see, do they continue that and what % that is?
Yes. So in the randomized control trial, we asked nothing of our research participants for 30 days, and then we followed up with them, and only a very few people were still journaling 30 days later. A couple were, but most people said they weren't anymore, which to me speaks to the benefit of having the journaling be embedded in a group setting, because it isolates the time dedicated to it. So people find the time to do it. And also people get great ideas when they hear what each other has written in their journal, because we share aloud what we've written, and people get good ideas, and it grows their lists. And so I think it's a very pleasant group exercise. The other thing that's built into it is that the group leader also journals themselves, and they share out, of course, judiciously what they've journaled. So I remember my days as an addiction counselor, how stressful it was and how difficult it was to find group topics, and to lead the group was, a lot of hard work. I did the work. I did that kind of work for only 1 year, but I remember that very, very well. And I feel that it's kind of my intention to have a gift for counselors, that you're leading the journaling group, but there's periods in the group when everyone is silently writing, including you, so that you as the counselor get some benefit from the journal yourself. And so you're leading the group, you're working hard, but you're not getting totally drained because you're getting some benefit yourself from the journaling. And universally, the people in my research study, they loved that I was also journaling with me. The research assistants were also journaling. We were reading out what they had written. Everyone loved that. They felt it made us equals. I wasn't like coming in from above, looking down on them, helping them. I was also a human being with good things and bad things that happened in my life. And they just absolutely loved it. So that's one of my side intentions, is that the counselor would be able to put some wind in their own sails by doing the journaling themselves during the group session. Now, I've promised you a blank journaling page, and I'm unable to drag it into the chat. So if you email me, I will gladly send you a blank journaling page.
Other questions?
In September, we'll probably be done with this study. We'll do a round in March. Maybe we'll do a round in June. So 2 more waves of bringing counselors in. We have our first wave underway now. You would be part of our second wave or our third wave. Then when we all done, you can write me in September. If I have any journals left, I'll send them to you.
Are there any things that you do that help people remember to do this? Do you to say, listen, schedule to do this at a certain time every day? Because I mean, if you give this to me and say, hey, write in this over the next week, I'll write in on the day before I come see you, more than likely, right?
Yes. Well, we do have a series of slides, pardon me, that talk about benefits of journaling in the morning, benefits of journaling at night, pardon me, and benefits of journaling with other people. And that might help a little bit. The other thing is, in a group setting, if anyone has journaled over the weekend, to like heap praise on them, and ask them to tell the group what helped them remember to journal, sort of some motivational interviewing kinds of techniques. What helped them to remember to journal? They successfully did it. What was helpful to them? Or even asking people, what would be some benefits of journaling over the weekend? What would be some ways to enhance your success to remember to journal over the weekend? But again, I think having scheduled treatment time for the journaling is the way to get everyone to do it. And if they do it for a little while, they might fall in love with it and keep doing it.
Perfect. Anything else? Any other questions? You can chat them in or you can unmute. And as usual, this was very interesting. I mean, I just think it's, I think it's such a good thing for people to be able to do. And there are some people that I see that are journalers, right? And they've been doing it for a long time. And I think they get a lot of pleasure out of it and a lot of reflection. And but really the hard part is continuing, right? It's being steady. So
Yes, I do know of someone who uses the journaling only when she's upset. So she doesn't use it as a daily regular practice, but she turns to it when she's upset, and it makes her feel it reliably makes her feel better. So I suppose everyone will have their own personal response.
yeah. Well, fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I think that we'll look down into the future here, another 9 or 10 months when you've got more stuff coming back and you've learned more, because it is certainly interesting for us to kind of stay on top of what you're doing down there. So thank you again for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. A pleasure to be with you today.
All right, everybody. We will see everybody next week. If there's anything that comes up, please get hold of Katie, or if there's anything else that you need. And again, if you have Amy's contacts, if you want something, please feel free to email her. So, all right, take care all.